Anners, we are going to do a review and breakdown of Act 3 of Arcane starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin.
And I'm Paula.
So this is Act 3. Sorry, we're a little bit late on the review and breakdown of this Thanksgiving holiday and stuff. So hopefully everyone has enjoyed their holiday. Episode 7 of Act 3 is titled Pretend Like It's the First Time. It is written by Amanda Overton, directed by Arnaud Delord and Bart Maunoury. The log line is a moment of darkness, a moment of light, and a vision of what could have been. Episode 8 is Killing is a Cycle, written by Alex Yee and Amanda Overton, directed by Arnaud Delord and Bart Maunoury. Logline is A Brig Storm fused a series of sparkling transformations. Elsewhere, the spark of rebellion still burns. And episode 9 is The Dirt Under Your Nails, written by Alex Yee and Christian Linke, directed by Arnaud Delord and Martin Minori. Logline is magic, science, power, revenge. Destinies clash in an epic final chapter, igniting an all-out war. Paula, what are your thoughts about the last act of Arcane season 2?
Uh, Actually, it was not my favorite
Uh-huh.
act out of all of them. I like that we had some closures in some areas, but the parts that I was mostly interested in, I felt were left open a bit. But overall, I already feel like Arcane can do no wrong, so it was good.
Okay. My spoiler-free thoughts about Act 3 is it was definitely able to wrap up storylines as best as possible. With one shocking twist of a secondary character in episode 9. Episode 7 really stands out as a memorable episode throughout. Episode 8 is definitely memorable for one particular scene that we'll get to. And also, there's definitely a difference when see it in different formats. It's weird. I saw Act 3 for the second time on 4K TV, and it's just a huge difference than seeing it from a personal laptop or from your phone, which I've done. So you definitely admire a lot more of the animation if you see it in 4K. There's also some mystery that was left at the end of the act, which opens up some more speculation as to what happens to certain characters. So I think that overall, definitely there's some downer moments, but then also I think that the fact that they're able to stick the landing and they're able to wrap up a lot of, like you said, storylines really helped to bring up the rating overall for me. So, having said that, Paula, what is your rating for Arcane Act 3 of season 2?
I'll give it an 8.
Oh god, okay. An 8. Alright. So, any reason as to why you gave it an 8?
It's personal for me. When season ends, I like closure. I don't like when there's an opening for something else. I like stories to end.
Mhm.
I wasn't
Yeah.
happy with all the open-ended
Yeah, that's
storyline.
always a frustration because with all these series, it's all about money at the end for all these industries, so they always have to leave it open-ended. I think that's some of the problems with some of the newer content that's out there, whether it's movies or TV. And if you see like something like old school, say Back to the Future, that has a definite ending. And also the creators of that movie has said many times that they don't want to do another one. The finale of it is not always there, but for me, I think that I would give it a 10, which is a theater rental. I think because they were able to make some really bold choices in episode 7 and episode 8. And both of them were very well done. And I think that they know their audience, that they're able to dig deep into the souls of their characters. And I really appreciate that a lot. I think that there's also a significant reason why this series works, and the demand for more spinoffs in the League of Legends universe is high. Because of all that, Netflix is trying very hard to get everything underway so that you don't stop this momentum that they clearly have. And even though it does cost them a lot of money, I think that they're able to do it and they're able to see the results for what it is because they're able to stick the landing and do it fairly well. I would give them credit for that and also for their bold choices. Any other thoughts before we get into spoiler territory?
Yeah, it's just one
Mhm.
more. That the whole open ending thing The good side of that is that they may be just making more stories. Doesn't have to be of Vi versus Jinx, but another story of the whole universe. So that definitely gives me hope and excitement.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that if they just try not to veer back into the Vi Jinx story and really give something new to the League of Legends universe, I think that that is a nice way to give this story much more finality. Whereas if they were like say, "Oh yeah, we're just gonna leave it open ended and then do some other shows, but focus on Jinx for the next show or something like that," I don't think that would be very good. I think that they definitely needed some finality and maybe Caitlyn or Vi or Jinx will appear in cameos or they be referred to in the series. And I think that will help them to build more characters that way so that they can have much more of a richer universe. And there's potential there because we haven't really seen that type of storytelling. Maybe the MCU, but even the MCU is way too interconnected. Um, and for here, I think that they're able to maybe do something that's much separate. Oh yeah, it's the same universe, but this is a whole different story, and it's nice to explore these characters and make you feel like you're a part of those characters as well. So I think that's the significance of Arcane is that you really feel for these characters and within just 2 seasons. So that's a really good accomplishment in their part. Okay, so without further ado, if you like what we have to say about Arcane and other content we put out there, please like, share, subscribe for more. We really appreciate your support, and we are growing as a channel. So without further ado, spoilers ahead. So we start off with episode 7, where Echo, we didn't see Echo in Act 2, so it was logical for the writers to bring him back for the first episode of Act 3. And the last time we saw him, that he was with Jason, he was Heimerdinger in the Hex Sphere. Turns out that he ended up in this alternate universe where everyone is doing very well for themselves. Zahn is very peaceful, is very happy, and he's in this scientific competition. And he's also a genius right now, but he doesn't know where he is. He's so disoriented, and he figures out that Powder is there. It's not Jinx, it's Powder. And everyone is alive except for Vi. We'll find that out later on. But she's just a fish out of water. And I really applaud the writers for taking this bold risk to put him in this alternate universe. So he makes him question his life in general. And throughout this episode, we go on this journey with Echo. Is it really better for him to just stay there, or is it better for him to go back and fight for this perfect, ideal place that he wants to be in? My question to you, Paula, is what was your reaction when you saw that Echo went into this alternate universe? And do you think that he deserves to be here with Powder in this universe?
He does. Echo for me has always been the character that made me ask, what's his purpose? I haven't really seen his impact up until this last episode. So I just had this feeling of, first of all, do I even care about this character enough to care about what's going on
Mhm.
there? And then second, it was like, yeah, I think maybe he should just stay there. But then you go, there must be a reason why this he's there, why this scene is happening. So a lot of questions that I ask myself, but I think he did the right thing. Because one thing about Echo is that he's really passionate about everything that he does, about his community, the people that he loves, and it just would not have been right for him
Mm,
to stay there, knowing everything that's going on back in real life.
mm. Yeah, it's almost like a dream world for him. And it's like you're living a lie, and also you have so much of your being and trauma, good or bad things that happen to him, he's still in there. And it may have not worked because I think that we saw it during this episode, the tension between the two. And he's trying to figure out this may be very good for me, but this is not me. I'm living someone else's life. And I think that he struggled throughout this episode with that, even though he was convinced by Heimerdinger, like, you should enjoy the moment. You should really take this all in for what it is. But I think that that pull was very deep in him to get himself out of this world.
Yeah, and it's hard to enjoy the moment when your whole life in reality and the people that you love are in danger. It'll be almost like giving up on them or leaving them to the fate of whatever horrible thing is going on.
Right. And we see here Heimerdinger was the other person that was pulled into this alternate universe. And Heimerdinger explained that he was there for a little bit longer than Echo was. And he was just enjoying his life. He was a musician. He was doing great overall. But I think he was much more ambivalent about maybe I want to go back. Maybe I don't. It's not a big deal to me, but I'll still help you anyway because I think that it's a nice problem for me to solve. And I think that he reminded me a lot of Doc Brown when he was stuck in the past in 1885. I think that he still wanted to help Echo get back when Echo finally made decisions that maybe we should try to attempt to go back. But I think Echo was under the impression that Heimerdinger would come back with him, but it turns out that he did not come back with him later on. We then see the flip side of it with Jace. Is in another world where everything's dead. Everybody's in this frozen statue state, and Jace is just struggling through to trying to figure out what this place is, and I think this pretty much redeemed him in a lot of ways because I said in the previous review that he acted a lot like Christian Cole from House of the Dragon, where you didn't know where his allegiances lie, and he was a shady character. Now we understand why he did what he did to destroy the Hex Tech, and it helps him to double down on his feeling that Hex Tech is dangerous. And now the audience sees that as dangerous because this was the world that could happen if Hex Tech went awry. And that shifted the audience mindset as to why it's important for him to do what he does. And then having the audience go on that journey with him was very important in this episode. We see here a nice scene of Zahn, much different from what we saw in the reality that we've seen in the last season, also in the last few episodes. This lit the internet afire with their relationship, and it reminds me a lot if you saw X-Men, the scene between Magneto and Rogue, the dance scene.
Mhm.
They had a nice musical theme throughout as well, and this also lit the internet on fire as well with their, relationship, and this is where the title of episode 7 came from, where Echo was very resistant to kissing Powder, but then he was like, "Maybe I should let myself go," and told her, "Pretend like it's the first time," which I thought was really cool. You really want to root for all these characters, and I haven't felt this way in a while where you're rooting for their well-being. Paula, what were your thoughts about how the writers and the creators put this scene together?
It was very well done. The dance scene was beautiful. I could not take my eyes off of it from the dance moves to the music and the edit. I have to say that romantic scene between the two of them here surprised me a bit, but you could definitely feel the emotion. You could feel the pull and Echo wanting to stay
Yeah,
for her,
yeah,
but not being able to
mhm.
for her as well.
Yeah, exactly. We find out that Hammerdinger was able to get the machine to work, and I forgot to mention that Echo was able to get a time machine to work, but it could only go back 4 seconds. And before the dance scene, we figured out that Heimerdinger was trying to work on it by himself, and he was able to get this portal open so that he can go back to his reality. It was almost like an outer body experience. It was like his soul was in the body of the alternate universe Echo. And it seems as though the alternate universe Echo was like pushed out of the way by this Echo that was visiting. And then at the end, when this Echo disappeared, then the alternate universe Echo woke up and said, "What the heck happened?" Which I found very weird because what happened to the alternate universe Echo all this time was he's just co-opted his body and worked for our main universe Echo. This is the ending of episode 7 where Jace was able to encounter this hooded figure, which we will find out who that is in the later episode. We start off with episode 8 with Jinx. This is now back in the main universe, uh, in jail. Caitlyn is trying to pour her soul in front of Jinx, saying that I hated you and I hated myself, and really just not in a good state of mind. But Jinx is also not in a very good state of mind either because she's felt betrayal. She's felt as though no one has really paid attention to her. She's just in a very depressive state. We'll see that in the next episode as well. We also get to see Mel and Jace reunite. We remember the romance that they had in season 1. They really didn't address the romance here at all. I think that because Jace has grown a lot in his journey, he's seen a lot of bad stuff happen. Mel has also seen a lot of bad stuff happen, so I think that they're both not as idealistic as they were back in season 1. So, it's much more distant. That's how I felt. Paula, how did you feel about their relationship? Because you would have thought that, oh, they're back together, right? They can be together again. Different.
Yeah, I was expecting that. It didn't happen. And then I just thought, you know what? They probably have too much stuff going on to be thinking about romance. Jace was lost in a different world for most of the season, and she was being pursued by the Black Rose and then found out all this info about her mom.
Mhm.
So they was just on survival mode. That's of how what I put it into.
Yeah, exactly. And then Bessa here, I think that the whole premise of her is trying to make sure that everyone's protected, but she's doing it in a very authoritarian way. And she now figures out that there's actually an ally that she can use, which is Victor, because Victor is now a higher being. We saw in the last episode that he was killed, but then he was resurrected, and Bessa sees the power that Victor has, and so she's trying to figure out what can I do to win the situation. And I think that having Victor by her side will win the day for her. We also see that Sagan was able to fuse Vander's essence with Victor and terminated Vander. We then get to see Jinx is still struggling in prison and she sees the vision. This screenshot was actually from season 1. I wasn't able to get a good screenshot of Silco reappearing in this vision with Jinx. And Silco was able to say that Jinx needs to break the cycle of this violence, of this trauma, of all this bad stuff that's happening in their world. And so this connects to the title of episode 8, which is Killing as a Cycle. And it's like an advocacy for Jinx to end her life, which I thought was very dark. But having seen Jinx through her journey, she is again not in a very good headspace because of what has happened to her. And I think that she's just trying to convince herself through Silco that it's not worth living here in this world because of what she's done. What do you think about Silco's reappearance in episode 8 here, Paula?
I mean, it's obviously in Jinx's mind. So it just shows you that Powder is taking back control and that she wants to stop. She wants to break that cycle,
Exactly.
you know.
And then we see the scene which has been talked about a lot online where Caitlyn and Vi reunite and they have a love scene. I wasn't shocked because they had a lot of interactions and they've seen a lot together, and there's always been that tension there. It was very funny that Caitlyn said to her that I was actually seeing someone else at the time, and she's and if I was saying, "I don't effing care," which was nice for her to say.
Almost like I knew you would choose me any.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cute they had that type of interaction. Vi definitely understands because I'm sure that Vi had moments of this when she was away from Caitlyn. She probably never acted on it, but at the same time, I think that she probably said, "You can be forgiven for that. It's not that big a deal for her." She's seen worse, I would think. And toward the end of the episode, this is where Jason Mel gets ready for war as Victor and Ambessa are advancing with their army towards Piltover here. So that was the end of episode 8. Episode 9 starts off with Jinx actually trying to break the cycle, by attempting to commit suicide. And Echo was the one that was able to stop her. And you saw that he went back in time to try to stop her 5 or 6 times from doing this. We didn't know at this time whether or not he was able to stop her because they really didn't drop that many hints. I think that his perspective that he saw from episode 7 really helped him maybe to convince her, "Hey, you shouldn't do this. I saw the good in you because I went to this alternate universe," which we didn't see actually in this episode, which I felt was a little bit of a misstep for them to not show a scene where Echo would explain to Jinx that I've been in this universe before. So, do you think that would have been a really good scene to have?
I don't think it would have added anything because it just would have told her everything that we already
Mm.
saw. The only difference will be to see Jinx's reaction to it. But we already know what she decides to do based on that. So I don't think it was necessary.
And then we have the betrayal of episode 9. Maddie turns out that she had been working for Mbessa the whole time, even when she was with Caitlyn. And quote where she said, "I did enjoy your warmth," which really was like, oh, that was a burn. And of course, Maddie does get her comeuppance where she was shooting the rifle at Caitlyn, but then it was deflected by Mel, and then she got shot in the head and died because of it. Paula, what are your thoughts about Maddie here? Because we started off seeing Maddie as this idealistic, enthusiastic enforcer.
Innocent.
Yeah.
I was shocked, and I wasn't shocked because of what she did, because I expected some form of betrayal from Maddie.
Hmm.
Not to that extent. What was really shocking is how there was no care in her eyes, in her facial
Hmm.
expression at all. Because this entire time, I thought she was sincere, and I thought she would turn against Caitlyn out of jealousy. And it turned out that she was never sincere from the beginning, and she was working with Mbessa from the beginning. So that I did not see coming, and it's written all over her face that she just simply does not care. So well
Yeah.
done on the acting.
Yeah, this is where I would give praise to the animators because the sense of emotion that they grab your soul is really, really good. Like the dancing back in episode 7, it's just really well done. Like a lot of it is the facial expressions, the eyes, really well done. And even here, it's I don't really care that you were with me. I'm doing my job. And it's what the hell? This is an example of one of the people from Zon that aligned with Piltover. And some of the people that were in Zon, like Civica, were not on board of defending the city because there's still a lot of bad blood between Zod and Piltover. But this is one of the guys that decided to, hey, for self-preservation, I should fight with Piltover and against Mbessa and Victor. And so this is a scene for that. We then get to see Mbessa died. So what happened was that Mel trapped her with the Black Rose. And so the Black Rose was squeezing her to death. And Mel then did a double cross and pulled her out from the Black Rose world, and then she died from there. So it seems as though there's a lot of not only just regret, but also she didn't know what to do with all this knowledge and all this power that she now has. Because Mel is very conflicted to because she doesn't know who to believe, but she still feels this allegiance and love to her. So it's like even though you have a loved one or a family member that has done bad things, they're like, I still love them. The love is still there. What I do? I think that was a choice that Mel made at the very end to embrace her mother in this way. This is where Echo was able to convince Jinx to fight alongside with Vi and of the other Piltover citizens. We then get to see Victor. You can see a part of Vander's wolf-like structure, and Victor has become a god for the most part, and he is above it all. And a lot of times when you become a godlike individual, all these petty arguments, petty wars, it means nothing to them. You guys just fight amongst yourselves. I'm going to clean up or do whatever later on. I think that's the state that he's in right now. Jace and Victor's relationship. They were very close as well. They were colleagues, they were friends, and both of them veered away from each other due to philosophical differences. But they were able to here, Victor was able to mind meld with Jace, and then through him, he was able to figure out that what he's been doing is not very good, and that what he's trying to achieve is perfection. And we figured out who the hooded figure here is. It's the older version of Victor, having more wisdom to say to himself, as I've tried to achieve perfection, it it really hasn't really gotten to a point where I'm happy with myself. The more I try to be perfect, the less happy I am. And the only time in which I felt very fulfilled and very happy was with you. And it's a very important lesson, I think, for a lot of people to think about because perfectionists sometimes aren't always very happy. I know from personal experience, being perfect is not always the best thing to be. And this is where their essence started to align and then they disappeared after this. Paula, what do you think happened to these 2? Because I think that Jace and Victor are both League of Legends characters. Do you think that they're gonna come back at some later point?
I don't know, to be
Mm,
honest. That was one of those moments where I felt like I didn't have any answers. It was left open. I'm not quite sure. I feel like Victor cannot die ever. I don't know.
We see that there was a beta switch that's happened here because we thought that Vi would die here because of the platform that she was on was about to break, and then that they were battling Vander here. And we know that Vander's lost already because of what happened with Singed, taking away his essence. We figured out that Jinx then started to fight Vander, and we see here that they're trying to hold on, but then she's telling Vi, "It's time to let go. I need to break the cycle." And you can see that they then fall down. Vi is completely agonized and heartbroken that they fell down, but it leads to open questions later on. We'll get to that scene as to what happens to the both, but clearly we see it from the song that she was about to die. The whole song was about that. My brother and I were watching this, and he's like, "They're definitely dead. What are you talking about? The song says so." But I'm not convinced because I've seen some stuff online. I don't really know either as to their fates. Then the last few scenes, we get to see some wrapping up of storylines, and this is what I admire very much. Sigurd had a storyline throughout the first 3 acts. He was able to resurrect his daughter. They didn't really say how his daughter was resurrected. We also see a very touching moment between Vi and Caitlin. They seem to be together, a good wrap up of their storylines here. If you have seen also online that in China, they actually censored this. So it was Vi that was all only by herself and Caitlyn by herself. So in this scene where you see them together, Caitlyn was only by herself. Uh, Now there's a lot of speculation as to why that is. I don't want to get too political about why that is. I personally have some ideas as to why that is the case, but we'll leave it at that. It's a nice wrap up of their story arc throughout the first 2 seasons. And then this final scene where there's a sailboat that flies away. We don't know who's in it, but there's a lot of speculation online that it might be James that's in it. Paula, who do you think is in that contraption there?
Jenks, I don't think she's dead. Yeah. She has gotten out of way too many nasty situations. So maybe her and Echo. I like that.
Mhm. That could be a good wrapping up the story of their relationship. So maybe they're just trying to start off because of what Echo has seen in the alternate universe. He's trying to convince her to have that relationship that he had experienced. And maybe Jinx is really open to that because maybe they did have something going. I don't remember back in episode 1, did they have anything going? I didn't remember that they did.
Don't recall. That felt a bit out of the blue to me.
Mhm.
I will have to go back.
Any other final thoughts about Act 3 before we wrap up?
It was a great season, great show. I am excited to see more from the League of Legends. I so badly want to see a show on Ambassa
Mm.
and where she came from, her life. I love her character. I love the strength that comes with that character.
Mhm.
I'm really hopeful that will be the next storyline.
Yeah, there have been rumors online about a series on the Noxians, which is where Ambessa is from and Nell is from. So I don't know if they're gonna do a prequel or they're gonna do a continuing of this story. Who knows how they're going to go about it? But again, the sandbox is really open in the League of Legends universe. So having had the success of this show, but I think that they need to really cut the timeline so that it keeps people talking and keep them in the consciousness because that was one of the drawbacks of having the gap between season 1 and season 2. But I know unless you're doing multiple seasons at a time, it's gonna be very hard for them to have the momentum for it to come out the following year because animation does take a
Mm.
while to do. We saw this with Spider-Verse, we saw this with X-Men, and also What If as well. I hope that people start to think about the quality of the stories because some of these stories are very good, and we will definitely review more of this content. So those are our thoughts.
Bye.